Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's time, so let's go ahead and get started. So there isn't a whole lot of people in here, so if you want to move a little closer, feel free to. So today we're going to be talking about corporate amendments in Appian. But first I want to introduce myself to you. I'm Bon Rector. I'm the company licensing program analyst with the NAIC. So my job is to make sure that companies, help them submit applications into to get licensing. So, to get into their applications into the UCAA portal. So applications such as primaries, redomestications, expansions, and of course corporate amendments. And I help the companies, make sure that they have all the right documentations and the right requirements, and also support the regulators with their, receiving the applications to make sure that they receive the right documents. And also I help with, with accessing the portal. So I help set up access with user ID, giving them the right roles, and making sure that that the state jurisdiction users are able to access it, and also the company users also. So let's talk about roles a little bit. So regulators, you do have two different roles, as a facilitator role and a reviewer role. So I make sure that you have the right roles so that you can review the applications as they come in. I also help support the national treatment and coordination work group. So I pretty much do it all. But that's enough about me. But coming back to corporate amendments, when we first started with the applications, it was in an older portal, which we called the legacy portal. So the legacy portal, like I said, it's an older portal. It's kind of clunky and didn't look the best. So this is, so we brought in what we call the new portal, and that's Appian. So Appian looks a little better. It's more colorful. It's not as gray as the legacy portal. So, but when we first moved into Appian, we started with the primaries, and then essentially the redomestication and expansions. And then just at the beginning of this year, in March, we moved corporate amendments over. So, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is the different types of corporate amendments that's available for you in Appian. So let me start with this. How many of you are familiar with corporate amendments? Okay, so you know that there's different types of corporate amendments, and when we talk about corporate amendments, we're actually talking about the change types, right? The change types that are available, and that's what we're gonna be talking about today. Start out with a question for you. Who here knows how many change types are available in Appian? Just take a guess. Anybody? 12? 7? Another guess? Who said 8? All right, you're close enough. Who said 11? Shalini said 11. Because you answered my question, I'll give you a prize. Oh, there you go. So remember that I'm going to be asking questions, and I'll give you prizes if you can answer, just to see if you're listening to me. But no, she's close. We have 10 that's available in Appian right now. Technically 11, but I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So the corporate amendments that we have available, like I said, there's 10 right now. So starting off with our first one, which is adding and deleting the lines of business. Second one, we have the name change. And then the third one, we have the redomestication of a foreign insurer. Fourth, the change of statutory home office address, which is our biggest one. Fifth one is the mergers and the acquisitions. The fifth one, or the sixth one we have is the change of control of foreign insurers. 7, amended articles of incorporation. 8, amended bylaws. 9, the statement of withdrawal. And 10, the voluntary dissolution. So when I say 11, there's the consent to service a process. So I call that kind of our black sheep because technically it's not a corporate amendment, but in Appian, it's grouped in with the corporate amendments. So it's kind of like, you know, our black sheep right now, and I'll get to that in a little bit on you know, what we are going to do about it. So those are our 10 our corporate amendments that are available on Appian right now. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the first one, which is the adding and deleting the lines of business and what the requirements are for them. So for the industry side, and can I have a raise of hands again who the industries are in here, the company side? So not a whole lot, right? So you're probably familiar with, you know, when you go in there to do submitting the application, you will have all these requirements on the requirements section. So these are all the items that are needed to submit an adding or deleting the lines of business change type, okay? Starting with the first one, it's going to be the general information. So the general information, you know, that's Form 2. That's going to be things that you will enter in, such as the organizational type, the company name, the company code, the company address, and the contact information. And that's the general information. The next one is going to be lines of business. So lines of business, it's going to ask you, you know, what you are licensed to transact in for that state. And also, what are you currently transacting in? So just because you are licensed doesn't necessarily mean that you are currently transacting, right? So the system is going to ask you what, you know, all these licenses that you checked off, what are you currently licensed in? So I'll ask you that question. And then, of course, with if you're adding a line of business, it's going to ask you what lines of business you're adding. And then, of course, with the deleting the lines of business, it's going to ask you what lines of business you're deleting. Okay? And then the next one is going to be the main questionnaire, and the main questionnaire is specific to the adding and the deleting lines of business because, you know, it's going to just ask you specific questions why you're deleting and adding the lines of business. The next one is going to be the management information. Now, this one is an important one because it's going to automatically pull in your company officers, and it's going to pull it in from the company filing. So your current filing, it will pull that in for you automatically. Now, if you had a change of officers recently, you know, prior to your filing, it is not going to bring that in, obviously. So this is something that, you know, when you go into that section, you will need to update it to the current officers. And also, of course, in your next filing, you would need to update that information also. Okay? So this is important. When you're listing the company officers, you must have a title of 1, president, secretary, and treasurer. The reason being is for signatory purposes, it has to be one of those, president, secretary, or treasurer, to sign. Okay? So if you have like vice president, assistant secretary, assistant treasurer, it's not going to let you do it. You have to have at least one of those titles for signatory purposes, okay? All right, then, whoops, go back here. So the next one is the pro forma. So pro forma, it's just your financial statements, pretty easy, right? The thing about the pro forma is what I get a lot about and what I get a lot of emails on or phone calls on is, from companies is Bon. I can't upload the pro forma. It's all grayed out for me. Why is that? First thing I'm going to ask them is, did you complete and validate the lines of business? And the question is always no. I want to upload the pro forma first. No. The system is set up, designed that you must complete the section for that second section, that lines of business requirement first. So it has to be completed and it has to be validated. If it is not completed and it's not validated for that requirement for that lines of business, the pro forma is going to be grayed out for you and it will not let you upload it. So if, one thing that you take out of here, just remember, you cannot upload the pro forma unless you validate and complete the lines of business. Okay. Of course, our next one that we have is the narrative. And the narrative is it's part of the three components of the plan of operation for the company. So it includes the main questionnaire, the pro forma, and the narrative. Okay, so that needs to be uploaded and added into the requirements section and completed and validated. Okay, so the next one that we have is the jurisdiction attachment section. So this section is also complicated because it needs a lot of documents, and the documents are very, very specific. Okay, starting with the first one that you're going to see if you're familiar with the filings it's going to be the filing fee. So the filing fee is obviously, just to show that the company has paid the filing fee with the jurisdiction. Now, if they are applying for 50 states, they have to upload 50 documents, for the filing fee. Of course, some jurisdictions have, they can pay ahead of time. So what the company can do is they can upload a receipt or a cancel check that they can put, just to show that they did pay their filing fee. Of course, some companies, and for state specific, they would need to be asked to be billed. So what they do is they upload a document, stating, send me a bill, please bill me, or inquiring with the state. Something like that to satisfy the upload requirement. Now, the one thing about the system is in order to upload the document, it's very specific on how you upload those documents. So each document that you upload, you must name the document with the abbreviation for the state. Okay? If you do not do that, then the system will not take your upload. So that's how it validates that you do have, a document for every state that you are applying for. So you must upload your document starting with the document or with the state abbreviation. The next one for an upload is the certificate of your COA, your certificate of authority. And that's also the same with uploading those documents for the jurisdiction. So each state, each document, you must have the same amount of document to upload as the amount of state that you are applying for, whether you're deleting or adding your lines of business. And each document, again, has to start with the state abbreviation, okay? Otherwise, the system is not going to take it. So those are the two main things that you must remember for adding or deleting the lines of business. The jurisdiction attachments is make sure your filing fee and matches the amount, the number of states that you are applying for, same with the COA, the Certificate of Authority, and make sure that each document you upload starts with the state abbreviation, okay? The next one that you would upload would be the Articles of Incorporation, the statutory deposit, your bylaws, your Certificate of Compliance, and a cover letter. And of course, on this section, any supporting documents that you need to just send over to the jurisdiction, okay? The next section that we have is the state-specific. So the state-specific, some states require additional documents that are not in the requirements section. So what we do in this section is we do have a hyperlink for the state chart. So you are responsible to go to that state chart using that hyperlink to make sure that the jurisdiction that you are applying for does not have additional requirements, okay? So before you can validate this section, you do need to check off and confirm that, yes, I did, go to each state requirement on the state chart for each state that I'm applying for to make sure that there is no additional documents that are required for the upload, okay? So that is for the change type for adding and deleting the lines of business, which, there is a lot of requirements. And like I said, it's one of our biggest change types that requires the most documents with it. Does anybody have any questions on this change type so far? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one, which, yep.
So the question that came in line is, under jurisdiction attachments, can there be a list of items to show what documents are required under there? Does that question make sense?
So are you asking if it's something that we can do? Is that?
I think so. They're asking if there can be a list to show it, or yes. They answered yes.
Okay. Yes. So with the enhancement, that is something, that we can look into, because what we're wanting to do, because we are working on enhancements to the new portal right now. And that's a good question. That is something that we want. We want the system to be intuitive. So, if they click on that section, then we want, something to pop up to let them know, oh, this is what you need, with the exact instruction. As it is right now, when you try to upload the documents and you don't have the right one, or the right, like I said, if you didn't label it with the state abbreviation, it doesn't tell you that. It doesn't tell you, oh, you didn't put a state abbreviation. It just gives you an error message. So that is something that, we are looking into. We want the system to be more intuitive, to let you know you must upload a document with the state abbreviation if that's the case. So, yeah, good question. All right. So our next one is the name change. So this is for the company wanting to change their name. So as you can see, it doesn't have a lot of requirements as the adding or deleting the lines of business. So the ones that it needs is, or the requirements that it needs is the general information, management information, and the jurisdiction attachment section, and the state specific. So it unlike the previous change type, it does not need the main questionnaire or the pro forma or the narrative. So it doesn't need the plan of operation. So pretty easy on this one. So our third change of address, it is the redomestication of a foreign insurer. So pretty much the same, just needing the general information, management information. Now the different item on this is the holding company. So, and the holding company, it depends on how you answer on the management information. So, and that will pop up for you, but same with this, it doesn't need the jurisdiction attachments or I'm sorry, it doesn't need the proforma, the questionnaire, or the narrative. Now, the thing with the redomestication of a foreign insurer is one thing that it does need on the management information, there you would need to upload your bio affidavits. Okay. I'm sorry. No, thank you for calling that out. It does not need it. I was thinking something else. So no, it does. It does need it. It doesn't need the narrative. Thank you for letting me know on that. But no, the one thing that it doesn't need is the narrative. So, but other than that, it needs everything else that's listed on here. But I don't think it's or the proforma. You wouldn't need it. Okay. Okay. It is on one of the requirements that, okay. So what do you do with it now that if you received it, you just?
When I'm doing a oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If I'm working on a redomestication, I'm not going to look at a proforma.
Okay.
I don't know what the purpose would be because they're just moving from one state to another state. That's all they've done. Now, if they're going to change their whole business plan or something, that might be another story. But there's not a proforma needed for that.
Okay.
I would need the holding company stuff, but I also wouldn't need the bios or TPVs for just a redomestication.
Yeah. Yep. No, you don't for this, you don't need to upload the bio, so I misspoke on that. But as far as the proforma goes, so right now they are, required to upload that. So are you just bypassing that and not reviewing it then?
Yeah,
so
I don't look at them.
Okay.
Because they don't really serve any purpose for just a redomestication.
Okay. Yep. Then that's
it might be needed at the domiciliary state level.
Right.
They would probably, need it, but as just a licensed state, I don't need it.
Okay. So can anybody else add to that? There's a question over here.
Online, Massachusetts indicated that they also don't look at the performance for foreign redomestications.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
We're basically the same. And with that, like you stated, it's just like we need a new certificate of authority if there's been a change in the articles and bylaws and new certificate of deposit. That's basically one thing I do like when we review them is that they go through and the company is able to put in not applicable. And that's what I see on the pro forma. And probably, it amazes me sometimes we may have like 40 lines or we may have to go through like 102 lines of information, and most of that would be not applicable. But for foreign redomestication, there's no pro forma needed.
Okay.
So
good.
because they're already established in that new state of domicile, so as long as we have the current certificate of deposit and their COA, they're basically, and the amended articles and bylaws, they're good.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's a good, thank you for that, because then we'll go ahead and can take that back. And definitely if it's something that we agree upon that it's not needed, we'll definitely get that removed to make it easier for the company for less submission and less requirements that they have to upload. So we'll definitely do that. Okay, so the next change type that we have is the change of statutory home office address. So I think this is one of the big ones too that I see a lot getting submitted. So for the statutory home office address, obviously the general information, management information, jurisdiction attachments section, and the state-specific requirements. You'll notice that there is a consent to service a process that is needed for the statutory home office address change. So, and this, yep, go ahead. There's a question. No? Oh, he's coming.
Okay, awesome.
Gotcha. Hi. So I think the issue that I'm finding is the management information isn't required in the company licensing best practices guide for a change of statutory home office or what we would call a domicile address. And that's the same thing with the redom of foreign insurer. The guide doesn't require a pro forma. And there's a lot of mismatch between the new system and that guide, which we need to use for accreditation purposes. So are there plans to, revise the best practices guide? It's, the Form 1E, the Form 1C, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But we're required to note that we have that. So we're kind of in a sticky situation.
Yeah.
Like,
So we do have plans to update. I know that there's some mismatch, and there's been some talk about it, and we are planning on updating that, to make sure everything matches. And I must admit, with everything moving into the new portal, there's been a bunch of changes, information that we don't need, documents that are not required anymore, and it's not updated. So that's something that we're working on getting it updated for you. But as far as going back to your question, you said something about the management information not needed. So the managed information, we do need it as a requirement in the system because the managed information pulls in the company officers, and we need that for signatory purposes. So, because, like I was saying, they need at least the president, secretary, and the treasurer for the signatory purposes. So, yeah. So without that, then we don't have anybody to sign for the documents. So, yeah.
is there any way to amend it to indicate that that's just for like signature purposes?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep. Great recommendation. All right. Anybody else have any questions on that? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. So our next one is mergers and acquisitions. Mergers and acquisitions are pretty much the same. The general information, management information, holding company, questionnaire, pro forma, jurisdiction attachments, section, and the state specific. Now, the mergers and acquisitions, this is the one that I was thinking of that does need the biographical affidavits. Okay, so that is required, and the company is required to upload those in. As is right now, for all application types, there is an upload requirement field for those biographical affidavits. So I think a lot of you notice, the companies are uploading documents that says not applicable, not required, right, for the bios. And I'm pretty sure you're just bypassing those, right? So what we're doing to save, with our enhancements, to save company, time and the jurisdiction of not having to even deal with those documents, is with the enhancements, we're gonna go ahead and remove those requirements except for the ones that need it, okay? With the mergers and the acquisitions being one of them that is still gonna be required. For all the change types that do not need the bios, we will go ahead and get that field removed, okay? Do we have any questions on that so far? All right. So we're halfway there for our corporate amendments. I think I've gone through 5. So just to see if anybody's listening, I am going to ask another question. Okay. So as I was saying earlier, on the first change type that we have, what requirements section must be completed first before you can upload the performa? Can anybody answer that question? Was anybody listening? Lines of business. Who said that? You? Guess what I got for you? Okay, ready? I'm going to test my throwing skills. Oh, almost made it. Thank you for answering that question for me. So you're right. So the lines of business has to be completed before you can upload your performa. Otherwise, it is going to be grayed out for you.
Bon,
Okay.
can we ask why there's an order of operations for those two items?
I think that was the intent, was that, when we have the requirement fields, as for, I know the regular side probably doesn't see this, but for the companies, whenever you validate each requirement section, there is a check mark. When you complete it and validate it, when you go back to the summary screen, it actually has a green check mark to let you know that you have completed that section. Okay, so I think the intent was to make sure that you go through each requirement section and complete it as you go. But working as design, Kim, is it, you got something to say about that?
I was just going to say, part of the reason that we have put some of those validation rules in place is because on occasion you have a requirement in one section that will actually generate another section. So for instance, if you're doing lines of business for life, you'll get a life section that holds up. So that's why it was done that way. But pro forma, I don't know that that's necessarily a rule that we have to follow.
Shalini, can you say that again?
Yeah, so it's basically you need to have your what you're applying for your application jurisdiction, then only you get the performa uploaded. So that particular performa to be uploaded, it requires the applying for application jurisdiction is a requirement.
Okay. Thank you. Shalini is one of our testers, our software engineers, so that's why she kind of knows the ins and outs of how the system works. So, but do you think that it would work better than if we, as is right now, because how I have it, in the order, this is the order that the company is seeing in the requirement section. So maybe would it help if we move, if we had the lines of business, for the adding and the deleting lines back next to the performa, like right before the performa, would that help then? Okay, for the company side, so they know that the lines of business has to be completed first before we can move on, right? I think that would be a good enhancement that we can do to the system. Okay. Do we have any other questions on that? Okay, so our next one we have is the change of control of foreign insurers. And these are the requirements sections that we have, the general information, management information, holding company, questionnaire, performa, narrative, jurisdiction attachment section, and the state-specific requirements. So, any questions on that? Go ahead. So can I get a mic over there?
Hi. So again, it's the consent to service a process isn't included here. And when you have that change of control, that's a pretty major change. I would be shocked if the services process contact wasn't updated. And again, it's in the best practices guide. So that should be something that's mandated for change of control applications.
So, okay, instead of filing a separate consent to service a process, you want it included into this change type. So you can just do it all at once. Yeah. Okay. So that would save you, having to submit 2 application types, right? Because consent of service, the process, well, I guess you do because the consent of service process is a standalone. So, yeah. But if we had it built in here, then you wouldn't have to do that. So that makes a lot of sense.
And Bon, I'm going to ask an unrelated question to that, but going back to the state-specific requirements, what if there's a state-specific requirement that someone fails to complete? Does the system identify that, or does it come after the fact where the state has to contact the company directly?
Yes, yes, and I can let the states speak on that, because what we do is we provide the link to the state charts and let them know, it's up to them to go to the state chart and check on the state specific on each state that you are applying for. And then we do have a check mark that you have to check that says, yes, I went to the state chart and make sure that I had all the requirements that are necessary. So, I guess I'll let the state speak on that. So what do you do when there is a state specific? Do you just request it then through an RFI is what I'm assuming? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Amend an application that's already been, sorry. If a company has missed submitting something that I need, I just submit an RFI to the company contact and say, this is what I need. And I give them the option to either provide it as an attachment in their response within the system, or they can send it to me outside the system.
Okay.
Because you can't amend an application once it's been submitted.
Right.
And like I've got one now, it was a corporate amendment, and they have actually submitted there's 3 applications that they have submitted now trying to add documents instead of doing it through an RFI.
Okay.
So that's a huge problem.
So are a lot of the companies, besides using the RFI, are they doing it outside of the system too, sending documents to you then?
Yes,
Okay.
because it's not easy for them to submit the documents within the like if they go into their application to upload something, they can't, because the application was deemed, completed. For submission. Once it's been submitted, they can't amend it.
Right. For corporate amendments right now, there is no option to amend it.
Yeah, and it's a problem.
Okay. So is that something, I've had that issue come up before with companies wanting to amend a corporate amendment. Is that something that, the state would like, besides having to go through the RFI?
Yes,
Okay.
because what they do now is I have this company made one application, and there were quite a few things that they needed to supplement in the application that they either uploaded the wrong documents or whatever it was they did, but they actually ended up they submitted 3 separate applications.
Oh.
And so if I open up each of those, go to the tracking number for each of those applications, it's the same documents, except somewhere in there's an amendment.
Okay.
Somewhere in there's a different document, and I have to go look for it. Okay. It's not as a reviewer, for someone who's actually doing the work, it's very difficult for me to find all of those documents from 3 separate applications when I might only need 1.
Exactly. So let me bring this up to you. So as far as documents go, what do you think about the download application, downloading the zip files? Is it something that is...
I'll be honest, I'm not a fan.
I was going to say, because while we're bringing that subject, I just wanted to get your opinion on it, because that is something that we are going to work on for you.
It is very difficult to work in that zip file.
Okay.
Because one, after you download the zip file, then you have to extract all the files from the zip file, and then it will tell you that it's unable to extract the document because the path is too long,
Yeah.
but you can't go in and change the name of the document to shorten the path so you can download it. I have this problem over and over and over again. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
As you can tell.
Yeah.
She knows what I'm talking about. It just, it's a vicious, well, it's just, it's this vicious loop of one more thing. And I was working on this when they first started the Appian project. I was working on this with Debbie Doggett, and I know a lot of the things that we discussed within the group, a lot of those things that had been agreed to be changed have never been implemented or never been changed.
Yeah.
It just kind of got rolled out, and it's very hard. Like I can't send a confidential RFI to another state because the person's name doesn't load as a recipient.
Okay.
And the recipients just give you names, but you don't know who they are. You don't know if it's a company person, if it's the regulator, if it's the company attorney. There's no identifying information anywhere in those lists to tell me who I want to send an RFI to.
Yeah.
I know who I want to send it to, but I'm not able to do it. So it forces you to work outside of the system.
Yeah.
And it wasn't designed. It was designed to actually review. You have your document, you have your workflow here, you enter in all of your information, it comes out into a memo, and then when you download it, all of it's in one beautiful, happy package. And you can't even open the documents in the system because the window's this big and you can't resize it.
Yeah.
So it's become, at least in the current way, it's just a repository
Yeah.
of documents.
So as you know, we sent out the survey
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago, and we got lots and lots of responses in regards to the document, which, I was a little surprised on because I didn't realize that was quite as a big issue as it was until I read the survey. So that is something that I spoke with our software engineers on and our development team, and that is something that, I told them, I said, we have got to get that worked out. I mean, they're spending so much time, or you spending so much time downloading those documents, and I have to admit, when I go in there and I download those the zip file myself, it does take me 2 minutes, and I know you guys don't have 2 minutes to sit there to download those zip files, but that is one of the things that we are going to work on for you. So lots of changes coming. Thank you for that discussion. So I'm going to go ahead. Time is ticking down. I'm going to go ahead and go on with our next amendments here, and these should be pretty quick. So our next one is the amended Articles of Incorporation. This one's pretty generic, pretty easy. The general information, management information, jurisdiction attachment section, and the state specific requirements. Okay. And then our next one is the amended bylaws, general information, management information, jurisdiction attachment section, and the state-specific requirements. So these are the ones that, I don't see a lot of issues with. I don't see a lot of really submissions for, so I don't see them as being a problem. Our next one is the statement of withdrawal. So obviously, besides the regular general information, management information, and the jurisdiction attachment section, we're going to require the statement of withdrawal, which is Form 17. So this is a requirement, obviously, needing that Form 17 for your withdrawal. Okay. Our next one is the voluntary dissolution. So if you're gonna go ahead and end your existence with the the state, then you would need to file the voluntary dissolution, and along with the regular information requirements, you're going to need to do the statement of voluntary dissolution requirement upload on this one. Okay. Okay, so our last one, this is the problem child that I've been talking about, the consent to service a process, which is grouped in with the corporate amendments in Appian, which really isn't a change type of corporate amendment, right? It's notification. So what we're doing with our enhancement is that we're going to go ahead and remove that from the corporate amendment selection. And with the discussion of redesigning the landing page, we're going to go ahead and just move it into its own little button. So if you're familiar with the legacy portal, so I'm sure a lot of you were familiar with the legacy portal, right? You know how it had like different buttons for with the when you're doing the expansions and the primary, but it also had the Form 12, right? The consent to service of process, which is what we're going to do when we do the landing pages. We're going to have each application type with its own buttons. Okay, so we're going to move the consent to service of process Form 12 into its own little section. So, but pretty much that is all I have for you with the corporate amendments. So hopefully, then a little bit to help you understand the types of amendments that are in Appian. We do have a few minutes for some questions if anybody has any questions. Wait for the mic. There he comes.
I do have a question. The last couple applications I've worked on, I wanted to send a confidential RFI to like the other regulator, to the domiciliary state regulator, but whoever is assigned, that person's name doesn't pull up anywhere. I'm not able to generate an RFI like to another state. I've been able to do it on some applications, but not all of them. Is this because maybe the domiciliary state hasn't assigned the application?
Oh, as the reviewer. So are you using the state-to-state communication, or are you?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm unable to send state-to-state communication in some on some applications or amendments.
So what I found out was that unless the application has been assigned as a lead reviewer, then it's not going to show you who a list on who it is that you can send to. So I don't know, Kim, is that something that you think that we can
Because
work?
like I'm the lead reviewer for all the foreign stuff that comes into our state. So me as the lead reviewer, should I be able to send state-to-state communication as the lead reviewer?
Oh, yeah. If you're the reviewer on the application, then you definitely can send a state-to-state communication.
All right, I'll have to go back and look because I'm struggling.
Yeah. Well, I think she's talking about the state-to-state, like whoever's
state-to-state communication.
So the reviewer.
The recipient list gets pre-populated. So you should see those recipients, domestic recipients in the list. And those are the only one. You cannot add them or remove. They should be pre-populated. I do have the screen open. I can. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And definitely send me the examples. Yeah. 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 All right.
And I
Great.
think we only have 1 minute left. I'll just highlight, there was a lot of comments that came in.
Okay.
Not really questions, but a lot of comments maybe substantiating a few of the points here. And Bon, I hate to say this, but if people have additional feedback, should they send that to you directly?
Yes, please. Please do. Thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed this and all the questions that you have. So great feedback. I appreciate it. Please send me more if you have it. Thank you.